Roughly 41 million people die every year as a result of non-communicable diseases, out of which 6.5 million people die as a result of diabetes and its related complications. And insulin resistance is a key factor that is responsible for development of diabetes. And insulin resistance is also the contributory factor for other diseases like hypertension, obesity, heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. So if we can understand what is insulin resistance and how can we prevent or reverse insulin resistance, we can significantly reduce the risk of getting these diseases, thereby increasing the longevity and also the productivity of an individual. Hi friends, this is Dr. Raghunath and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this particular video, I will be sharing with you some tips on how to prevent or reverse an insulin resistance. In my previous video on insulin resistance, I had spoken on what is insulin, what is the function of insulin, what is insulin resistance, and what are the factors that are responsible for the development of insulin resistance, and what are the diseases that one person can get if he has insulin resistance. So if you have not watched that video, please go and watch the video, because understanding the reasons for development of insulin resistance is very important if we have to understand how to prevent this insulin resistance. So I have tried to make that video very simple so that even person who doesn't have any medical background can understand what is insulin resistance and how does insulin resistance develop. So I also given some examples to make people understand the reasons behind development of insulin resistance. So I will be sharing with you 9 tips on how to prevent insulin resistance, 4 of which will be related to diet and the rest will be other factors. So this itself suggests that when it comes to prevention of insulin resistance, diet plays a very major role. So when it comes to diet, the first and the foremost factor is the amount of sugar that we consume. So when it comes to sugar, there are actually 2 types of sugar. One is natural sugar, the other one is added sugar. Natural sugar is one that is naturally present in a particular food. For example, like a fruit. So a fruit contains a natural sugar. Added sugar is one where we add sugar during the processing or preparation of the food. Consuming foods that have natural sugar is not a problem, but the problem arises when we consume too much of foods that have added sugar in it. So when it comes to added sugar, there are basically 2 types. One is revealed sugar, the other one is a hidden sugar. So revealed sugar is where you know that that particular food contains sugar. Say for example, you know that there is sugar in ice cream, you know that there is sugar in chocolate, and you also know that there is sugar in a sweet item or a dessert that you eat. But there are some food items where there are hidden sugar, so you don't know what is the amount of sugar in that particular food item. Say for example, there is a lot of sugar in biscuits, there is a lot of sugar in fruit juices that we do not realize, and there is a lot of sugar in soft drinks like Coke or Pepsi that we consume. So if we consume foods that have added sugar once in a while, then that's not a problem, because whenever we consume that kind of food, the sugar level in the blood rises, which actually causes a spike in the insulin levels. And as soon as we come back to normal eating pattern, the insulin levels and sugar levels will come back to its normal level. But what happens is, if we eat this kind of food on a daily basis, if this food becomes our day-to-day food, then what will happen is the blood sugar level will constantly rise, which will again cause the rise of insulin level, and the insulin levels will be persistently higher, which will lead to the development of insulin resistance. So let us take the example of coffee or tea. So most people would consume at least 2 to 3 cups of coffee or tea every day, and even if we consider that a cup of coffee will have 2 teaspoons of sugar, so that will amount to almost 6 teaspoons of sugar every day. The second important factor is fruit juices. So when it comes to fruit juices, people consider that the fruit juices are healthy, and people do not think twice before consuming a fruit juice. So whenever we juice a fruit, what will happen is most of the important nutrients and the fibers that is present in that particular fruit is taken off, and what is left is actually sugar. And moreover, we add extra sugar to that fruit juice. So a 250 ml of fruit juice has roughly about 6 to 7 teaspoons of sugar. Similarly, we eat a lot of chocolates, we eat a lot of cakes, we eat bakery products, and many more items which contain a lot of sugar, and we do not realize the amount of sugar that is going inside our body. So now let's see whether there is a requirement of added sugar to our body. So there is no requirement of added sugar to our body. So the body does not require any added sugar, and it does not have any nutritional value apart from the energy that it has. So let's see what is the maximum amount of added sugar that a particular person can consume. So as per the guidelines by the American Diabetic Association, a male can consume 35 grams of added sugar per day, and a female can consume 25 grams of added sugar per day. So a 35 gram of added sugar would roughly amount to 7 teaspoons of sugar per day, and the 25 grams of added sugar would roughly amount to 5 teaspoons of added sugar per day. So a female can consume 5 teaspoons of sugar per day, and a male can consume 7 teaspoons of sugar per day. A 250 ml of fruit juice will contain 6 teaspoons of sugar. Glass of Coke or Pepsi contains 6 teaspoons of sugar. 3 Oreo biscuits contain 6 teaspoons of sugar. A 10 rupee Dairy Milk chocolate contains 8 teaspoons of sugar. A scoop of vanilla ice cream contains 6 teaspoons of sugar, and 3 cups of coffee or tea contains 6 teaspoons of sugar. So even if we consume 2 or 3 of these foods every day, the amount of sugar that goes into your body actually significantly increases. So whenever there is increased consumption of sugar, this causes increase in blood sugar level, and when the blood sugar level goes up, the insulin level will rise, and persistently higher insulin level will contribute to the development of insulin resistance. So let's see how to reduce the sugar consumption. The most important thing is to reduce the amount of coffee or tea that we drink. Even if we drink coffee or tea, it is better to reduce the amount of sugar that we put inside the coffee, and it is always safer to start practicing drinking a sugarless coffee or tea, because many people think that only diabetics should take sugarless coffee or sugarless tea, but that's not the case. Because if you take my example, even though I'm not a diabetic, I consume a sugarless coffee, because by this I'll be able to keep the sugar levels that I consume to a much lower level. And the second important factor is to avoid having chocolates, cakes, desserts, or any sweet item on a regular basis. This should not be a part of your daily food. It is okay to consume this once in a while, say once in a week or once in 2 weeks, whenever you have a party or you go to a function or you have some event that is coming up. And the third point is to decrease your intake of processed food, because many processed food contains sugar which is hidden in it. We do not realize the amount of sugar that is going into our system. So always try to avoid these processed foods like biscuits, chocolates, confectionaries, and other things. The second important point when it comes to food is the consumption of refined grains. So all these refined grains mainly contain carbohydrate, which ultimately gets converted into sugar and which contributes to the development of insulin resistance. So if you see, the Indian diet is predominantly carbohydrate based. So at least 75% of what we eat on a regular basis is carbohydrates. So we should be very mindful of the amount of refined grains that we are consuming, be it a polished rice, a polished wheat, maida, or any refined grain for that matter. So whenever we refine a particular grain, the outer layer which contains fiber and micronutrients like vitamins is taken off, and all that is left is actually carbohydrate, which ultimately gets converted into sugar, which will contribute to the development of insulin resistance. Reduce the amount of refined grains that you consume. Instead, add fruits, vegetables, salads, sprouts to your diet. Add protein to your diet, and consider adding good quality fats to your diet. Thereby you can reduce the amount of refined carbohydrates that you consume. Try to consume whole grain in place of a refined grain as far as possible. The third point when it comes to diet is eating when we are hungry. This is very important, because normally what we do is we eat as per the time. Say for example, morning 9 o'clock we have breakfast, 11 o'clock we have a snack, and in the afternoon 1 or 2 we have the lunch, again in the evening we have a snack, and in the night we have dinner. So this habit of eating as per time is actually very problematic. We have to practice eating only when we are hungry. So if you eat a food when we are hungry, that food is actually required for the body. If you start eating food when we are not hungry, that will add to extra calories. So eating food when we are not hungry actually leads to overconsumption of food, and this leads to the development of insulin resistance. So the thing that we have to follow is eat when hungry and stop when full. So only eat a particular meal if you are hungry, and immediately stop once your stomach is full. And it is okay to skip a meal if you are not hungry. And the fourth factor when it comes to diet is having an early dinner. It is extremely important to have dinner within 1 to 1.5 hours after sunset. Say for example, if the sun sets at 6 or 6:30 in the evening, you should finish your dinner by 8 p.m. So by having your dinner early, this will ensure a fasting window of at least 12 hours between the dinner and the next day breakfast. A 12-hour fasting window, also called as intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding, will significantly help in the prevention and reversal of insulin resistance. So we have noted 4 points when it comes to diet. The first thing is reducing the amount of sugar that we consume. The second thing is reducing the refined carbohydrate that we consume. And the third thing is eating when we are only hungry. And the fourth thing is having an early dinner. The fifth point that helps in the reversal or prevention of insulin resistance is exercises. One has to exercise at least 30 minutes a day. Most people focus on aerobic exercises. They actually do jogging or walking, and people do not actually focus on muscle strengthening, because muscle strengthening is extremely important when it comes to prevention of insulin resistance, because the more the muscles you have, the better is your ability to store the glucose as glycogen in your muscles, thereby helps in reduction of insulin resistance. So always try to focus on muscle strengthening exercises. Muscle strengthening exercises could be simple body weight exercises like doing push-ups, pull-ups, planks or squats. You can use some small weights to do the upper body exercises, or you can do yoga. The next and the most important factor when it comes to prevention of insulin resistance is sleep. So when it comes to sleep, there are actually 3 aspects of sleep. One is the quantity of sleep, the second is the quality of sleep, and third is the consistency of sleep. So when it comes to quantity of sleep, one should sleep for at least 7 hours a day. There are many ways by which we can improve the quality of sleep. One is by having an early dinner, and the second is by reducing exposure to bright light and TV screens or mobile or laptop screens at least 1 or 2 hours before going to bed. And it is always a good practice to dim the lights of your house wherever you stay 1 hour before going to sleep. And the consistency of sleep is also very important. One should make it a habit of going to bed at the same time and waking up in the morning at the same time. So if you fix a schedule, so the body also gets adjusted, and your quantity and quality of sleep also will improve. Focusing on sleep will not only prevent insulin resistance but also prevent multiple other diseases. See, the present generation do not sleep properly. They have the habit of going to bed late in the night, and they try to compensate the sleep that they have lost by sleeping all through the day in the weekends, and this is a very bad trend, and this leads to the development of multiple diseases. Once in a while it is okay to sleep late. Say for example, you have a party and you go to bed late in the night on that particular day, but it should not be a daily routine. The next important point is stress. Stress contributes to the development of diseases in multiple ways. People who are stressed do not sleep properly. Even if they go to bed, they find it difficult to fall asleep, and the sleep also gets disturbed. So it is very important to focus on reducing and managing stress levels. There are various things that you can do. You can practice pranayama, you can practice meditation, you can do daily exercises, or getting yourselves involved in any sport will also help in reduction of stress. Changing your mindset and the way you approach things and the way you approach life will also help in reducing the stress. And the next important point that one has to consider is breathing. See, breathing is an extremely important factor when it comes to maintenance of health. What happens in people who are stressed is that they have a fast breathing. So whenever there is fast breathing, what will happen is there is insufficient oxygenation that is taking place in the body, and there is a retention of carbon dioxide. This insufficient oxygenation and retention of carbon dioxide leads to accumulation of toxins, which leads to multiple diseases. And the next thing that one has to consider is reducing the bad habits that people have, like smoking or alcohol. So if somebody is a smoker, one has to seriously consider quitting smoking, because smoking is a very significant risk factor for development of multiple diseases including cancer. So it is very important to quit smoking. So when it comes to alcohol, it is always useful to reduce the amount of alcohol that you consume, or it is even better if you can totally avoid consumption of alcohol. If this video was of any use to you, kindly like and share my video. Consider subscribing to my channel so that I can create more content like this. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.